is just not one of them. Chain to the Rocks and Crackling Doom are kill spells regardless of size.
There's only really 2 decks in the format that I can think of, Mardu and Blue-Black Control, that have mid-range or control plans that don't really involve blocking. The Abzan decks, the Sultai decks, they're all about blocking, not as their primary plan, but sort of incidentally as a way of controlling the beatdown decks. But against Blue-White Heroic, that doesn't really work because they have so many ways of avoiding blocking. Mardu, on the other hand, just overloads with removal spells, and it means the can't block element of Blue-White Heroic just isn't very effective.
And we see right now Kelley starting out just on a pair of tap lands as he slowly develops here. And the pressure's really on Joe to get things onto the board. It'll be a Battle-Wise Hoplite onto. You already see some windup here from Kelley. He does have that copy of Crackling Doom in his hand, along with Chandra, Pyremaster, Hordling Outburst. It looks to be enough lands to get all those on curve.
A Murderous Cut as well.
So with Cut and Crackling Doom, these are 2 hard kill spells. And the scary part is that Kelley doesn't even have to he doesn't have to kill the Battle-Wise Hoplite just yet. He can wait until Joe spends some cards on that guy.
That's the nice thing about having access to Crackling Doom. It's one of the unique elements of Mardu. You don't see it in other decks, of course, because of the mana cost. And there aren't that many edicts in the format. You know, it's part of the reason that Sylvan Caryatid has become so powerful and so prevalent that it just survives all the time. And a lot of the Blue-White Heroic deck is leaning around the same principle. I do not know if a deck like this would be viable if Devouring Flesh was still legal. So the one time that you do get to run into these kind of matchups where, your opponent does have access to a really powerful edict, it's just hard to win because your deck's not really built to handle those kind of cards.
Absolutely not. We see Hordling Outburst to play from King. Joe will play Heliod's Pilgrim. Looks like he's aware that this is an attrition fight, so he's going to go ahead and get Ordeal of Thassa. Just try to stock up on more cards so he can slog through the removal he's expecting.
If he can get an Ordeal of Thassa to go off, he's got a chance of recovering from this mulligan. That's going to be really hard to do against Mardu, but it is a plan of attack at least.
Yeah, it's so hard because you can't play around Crackling Doom.
Yes. There's not much to be done. I mean, Joe can try to set up some of his Stubborn Denials, but that's going to be really hard to do.
So we pass back over to Kelley. Got options on 4. Looks like he's going to go for Murderous Cut, just with a single delve. Just take care of Battle-Wise Hoplite. And swing for 3. Willing to trade off a token with that Heliod's Pilgrim.
It feels a little early to be making that sort of attack. I'm not sure what's gained there by getting 2 points of damage in.
Yeah, I'm okay with Joe if I'm Joe with how that Murderous Cut happened here, because it was just a 1-for-1. He hadn't put anything on the Hoplite yet.
Well, the problem is the knowledgeable Blue-White Heroic players, they're rarely going to expose themselves to 2-for-1s like that. They're going to wait for opponents to be tapped out, wait for it to have God's Willing back up before they're going to deploy the enchantments.
Yeah.
Joe's hand might be forced a little bit on 5 cards, but
I think okay, so then Kelley can just play against some vanilla 2/2s. That's not so bad. He has legitimate 5/4s and things that can win that board. See right now, it's going to be Lightning Strike and Crackling Doom taking care of Joe's board, and that opens it up to Stubborn Denial, and the Crackling Doom gets denial.
And this is a sequencing disaster here for Kelley, because this may allow Joe to get Ordeal of Thassa online and firing off this turn. And if you look at Kelley's hand, it's a Stormbreath Dragon and a Chandra. This could be big-time trouble.
Well, it's not going to fire off this turn, I don't think. But one thing we do know is that Joe has another copy of Stubborn Denial in hand. And thanks to this trigger from Ordeal of Thassa, he has a 4-power creature in play. So this Stubborn Denial the Ferocious is triggered on it. So this is just negate.
And it depends now what Kelley wants to do. If he wants to play just Stormbreath Dragon and race. But if he goes for Chandra this turn, that he gets hit with a Stubborn Denial, and then he's way behind.
Stormbreath Dragon is going to be the play. It does have protection from white, so it'll play a good defensive game. But you're right, he might be behind here. And no interest in blocking. He's going to go on the attack. He'll race. Joe goes down to 12. I don't know. Racing this deck is terrifying.
Well, I think trying to block is even worse. I don't mind this from Kelley. Maybe he would have Maybe I would have preferred to hold back one token there so you have a chump blocker, but I don't mind just trying to get aggressive here. Every time I see someone try to sit back and block against Blue White Heroic,
Sure.
it just does not work out. He also knocks down Joe down to 12 by making that attack, which means Stormbreath Dragon kills in 3 hits. He can try to set up his defenses next turn with his token if he wants to.
Well, there's a chance that Kelley can have him on a 2 or even 1 turn clock here, thanks to Joe just drew a bunch of cards, and if Kelley has the land, he can use the Monstrosity ability on Stormbreath. It might trigger to do a fair amount of damage depending on how many cards Joe plays, and makes the Stormbreath even bigger, makes it a 7/7. So Joe has to watch out for that line and not keep too many cards in his hand.
Yeah. And Joe just wants to cast whatever he can cast at this point anyway, because the game is shaping up to be a pure damage race.
Yeah, he has Hero of Aroa, so he's going to play a second one. He has Battlewise Hoplite, Stratus Walk, and Stubborn Denial as his remaining cards. You think he
things
just
were
runs
looking
out the other 2 too, yeah.
I think so. Things were looking so grim to start this off too, and Joe might be, I mean, he's making a game out of it.
I think Joe's trying to decide as to whether or not he wants to fire off this Stratus Walk. It only costs 1 at the moment. Or whether he just wants the Battlewise Hoplite.
Well, the problem with the Stratus Walk right now is it means that the hero cannot block anything next turn. It can either block a token, nor can it block the Stormbreath Dragon because of protection from white. This is a freebie. Joe can just put this on the creature he's already attacking with, but I don't think he wants to put the Stratus Walk on the new hero because I think he wants to try to block something with it this turn.
Draw from Kelley is an untapped land. I believe it's Bloodstained Mire. He has Chandra and Bloodstained Mire here. He's going to face an interesting decision here. He may go defensive for a turn. He can sit back and use the Monstrosity ability on Stormbreath. It will hold. It would block the Hero of Aroas. There's a lot of danger to that line, though.
Yeah.
Aqueous Form would get him. But he doesn't have a lethal attack right now. He's down 9-12 in the race.
And he has land number 7 in play, but that is a Bloodstained Mire. And every point of damage counts at this point.
Plays the land.
I don't mind playing defense for 1 turn.
That's what, yeah. The question is, do you want to cast Chandra here, or do you want a Monstrosity the Stormbreath Dragon? I think there's merits to both.
I think in terms of mana efficiency and surprise value, I would prefer to Monstrous inside of Joe's draw step first and have the Chandra available next turn. Because if he Monstrous is the Stormbreath Dragon this turn, it means he's still drawing cards that may matter. Because he can cast the Chandra, and if he draws a 3-mana or less spell, can follow it all in the same turn.
We'll see what happens here. He's cracked a fetch land, which suggests he's going for the Chandra, but maybe not. Surprised that right now he's just cracking the fetch land to get lands out of his deck. Which, if he's going to play Chandra and zero it, that makes sense. It gets a land out of your deck, so the 0 is slightly better.
Mm-hmm.
He may just be attacking with Stormbreath. And this is scary.
Yeah, he's got to hope that Joe's got really nothing left over.
Yeah, use the Monstrosity ability, but it's not lethal. Stormbreath becomes a 7/7. Joe takes, I believe, 3. So he'll go to 2, but that's not... I don't know. Yeah, if Joe only needs to make this Hero of Aroas a little bit bigger.
Here's the thing. This is what I don't like about Kelley's play here is that the same line of play is available to Kelley next turn because Joe's deck can't block a Stormbreath Dragon.
And it looks like Joe, after drawing a land, he's going to be dead to this anyway. Joe wants to make sure he blocks. Kelley does block, and I think that's going to be game 1 for Kelley King.
Yeah, Joe needed a +2 effect there, so I think Defiant Strike or a copy of Heliod's Pilgrim to go get something would have gotten the game done there, but Joe missed and not quite able to recover from his mulligan to 5.
Yeah, it would have, any of his tricks, well, you're right, not any of them, but a lot, you're right. Defiant Strike, Heliod's Pilgrim, an Ordeal, Feat of Resistance.
Well, even the protection effects get the job done because his one hero is unblocked guaranteed because of flying. So if he has a way to punch through the other one, God's willing, on his other creature, whatever. He definitely has a fair number of outs there, but Joe missed them all. Just had, I believe, a Stubborn Denial, Battlewise Hopple, and 2 lands left in his hand, so not much to be done.
You have it there. Kelley King taking down game one. Let's move over to the sideboard. The question, I guess, for me is, did things get better for Joe here? He does have more ways to protect his creatures. He has cards like Ajani's Presence, maybe more creatures, things like Lagana Band Trailblazer, or he can just use Negate to try to protect his creatures from those spells that get him really well.
I like Negate. I like the Treasure Cruise. I think the copies of Glare of Heresy are fine in this matchup. They're not great, but it's still an answer to Butcher the Horde, which is a problematic card. Chaining the Rocks. If Burmaz is in Kelley's deck, it's an answer to that. And I think...
More Stubborn Denials? Yeah.
I question how good that card is just because of Crackling Doom and all the removal. I think it's easy to get caught in a spot where Stubborn Denials doesn't do anything. I think it's still probably worth bringing in on the balance, but it definitely has a very low floor. When it's bad, it's going to be uncastable.
It's going to be really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, once you get a guy up to 4 power, then the card's good.
Yes.
But you're right. It's up until then, it is suspect.
And things are not getting any easier for Joe on the other side of the table. Sideboard of an Elspeth, 3 Anger of the Gods, 2 Erase, 2 End Hostilities, a Chandra, 3 copies of Read the Bones, 3 copies of Thoughtseize. I think this is pretty straightforward stuff. The Anger of the Gods, the End Hostilities, the Erases, and maybe the Elspeth can all come in. But
how do you feel about Thoughtseize here? Takes care of it. It trades with the Gods Willing.
I think I just have my concerns about my life total if I'm Kelley's spot. I don't think there's any particular card you're looking to attack. And he has to preserve his life total here.
Okay.
And also, what are you going to cut?
I guess the question is, I wouldn't mind playing Thoughtseize here. I guess my question would be, what are you cutting for it? I mean, there's a lot of really good weapons on the Mardu side.
I think the copies of Goblin Rabblemaster are a little suspect because I think Kelley wants to be a pure control deck in the matchup. And once you get past that, I mean...
Do you like Hordling Outburst anymore?
I think Hordling Outburst is okay. I could see getting away from Sorin a little bit. Sorin I don't think is very good against Blue-White Heroic. But there's not a lot of cuts to be made because the deck is all awesome creatures and removal spells. Yeah. Pretty good recipe against Blue-White Heroic.
And do you like cards like Magma Jet here?
I do. Anything cheap I think is valuable because if Kelley can navigate the way in such a game in such a way where he prevents Joe from getting any early traction, any of the creatures to stick, then that's a victory. And if Joe's waiting until turn 3 or turn 4 to deploy creatures with God Willing back up, then all of a sudden, you know, some of the edict effects like Crackling Doom, the sweepers like End Hostilities, Joe starts playing into that as well. So the cheap removal, I think, is part of a total package, making sure there's no good angle of attack for Joe. And there's going to be plenty of games where Joe just casts a turn 2, 2/2, and Kelley has a turn 2 Magma Jet on the draw, and that's awesome.
It's great.
It doesn't seem like much, but it is awesome.
It means, well, Kelley gets a Scry 2, and the game just gets to go longer, which is what Kelley wants.
Yep.
These players are getting ready for sideboard here. We have talked about the schedule for the rest of the month. We have an invitational in the Players' Championship, and it is the holiday season upon us as well. StarCityGames.com does have a holiday sale going on. Make sure that you check in at 11 a.m. this Monday through Friday. This is going to be all the way up until the end of the month, as we'll have different items on sale.
Yeah, a perfect time to get holiday shopping done for yourself or for loved ones. Star City Games periodically runs these lengthy sales. Sometimes it's during spring, back to school. The holiday sale runs for over a month, and a lot of good stuff goes on sale during this time. So you're going to want to check back to the website periodically, see what goodies go up.
It's kind of like those calendars that you get where you every day you open a door and you get something different.
Exactly.
Yeah, except it's on a website.
And it's good deals on Magic cards, which is probably better than whatever your loved ones put behind those calendars back in the day. I know that was definitely
Sometimes
true
it was
for me.
candy. If
yeah,
I was
it was
really
usually just a blank panel.
I liked it when sometimes they're like a proverb, and then you're like, yeah, that's cool.
It's a I like putting nothing behind them sometimes just to keep people honest. Sometimes life does this to you. This is a valuable
You don't always
lesson.
get to win.
Yeah, sometimes you just lose. It's fine.
All right, Joe Lossett on the play. This time looks like hopefully he gets to keep 7. It is definitely an attrition fight in this matchup, so he needs all the cards he can get.
So his big tools in the matchup are swinging the tempo with God's Willing, Stubborn Denial, that kind of effect, and getting Ordeal of Thassa's stick. Those are Joe's way of taking advantage in the matchup. It's hard to do because the Mardu deck has such a diverse range of removal, in cost and effect, sweepers as well post-board, but that's what Joe's got to strive to do.
Tempo on the play, turn one from Joe. He puts a Aqueous Form on the bottom, wanting all his cards to, doesn't want to get 2 for 1. Kelley will start on a Thought Season. We'll get to see Joe's hand here.
So curious to see Kelley bring in the Thoughtseize, though Blue-White Heroic does occasionally have these draws of 1 creature enchantment or 1 creature, and 1 discard spell can ruin the whole thing.
So we have some extra lands here. He has a Plains, a Mana Confluence. He has a lot of protection cards, so Singing Bell Strike, Stubborn Denial. He has an Aqueous Form. I'm not sure if he has a creature right now.
Yeah. The card all the way to the right appears like it may be Seeker of the Way. We'll find out momentarily, but if that's the case, then...
Yeah, Hero of Erois is the top card.
Sure. If that's the only piece of action going on in Joe's hand, then this Thoughtseize is incredibly good.
Yeah, so he's going to take the only creature out of Joe's hand. So we see, yeah, Singing Bell Strike, Stubborn Denial, Aqueous Form, 2 lands as what's left for Joe, and that is not a good spot for Mr. Lossett.
And that's a perfect Thoughtseize there for Kelley. That's the ideal scenario, is Joe's hand has some hole in it. You're able to poke at that hole, and now Joe's hand doesn't really go anywhere.
Joe plays the 2 lands we know about. It's Kelley who will have the first threat on the board, and that is Goblin Rabblemaster. We're sure how much of this we'd still have in. Kelley, though, this is a great spot to have one, as it'll probably erase whatever Joe's doing.
Exactly. I don't mind Rabblemaster, when you're backing it up with a bunch of removal, which is what is going on in Kelley's deck post-board. It's just Kelley's deck is nothing but awesome cards in the matchup, and I don't know what else you're supposed to cut. But an uncontested Rabblemaster is certainly fine.
Yeah, and I think he's got a bunch of creatures of his own. It looks like, I think, Butcher and another Rabblemaster in hand. Gonna try to make short work of Joe this game. And the blue-white deck, I think as you see here, it does not play well from behind at all. It doesn't have removal.
He can, Joe can engineer a situation where he can break start by getting a blocker into play, using a protection effect to eat an attacker, and trying to swing back that way. But against Mardu with all its removal, and especially Crackling Doom, it's just hard to get to that point. And Joe's going to be facing lethal in not that long, because this Rabblemaster is currently uncontested.
There you have it. It's going to be Butcher of the Horde. If you haven't seen this curve out yet, this is one of the scary things out of the Mardu deck. Rabblemaster makes a token. That token gives Butcher haste, and we have a swing for a full 9 points of damage here on turn 4.
And Joe is now dead next turn.
And yeah, this is why Mardu, to me, is a really good deck and really scary, is that this is a 14 creature deck. It's devoting more than half of its cards to just removal spells, and it can kill you on turn 5.
Yeah. This is kind of a special case because most decks in the format put up more resistance than Blue-White Heroic does. You rarely get this draw uncontested, but when it does come up, basically a free win.
Singing Bell Strike on the Butcher of the Horde is going to attempt to stem the bleeding here, but Goblin Rabblemaster does a lot of damage on his own. Joe's going to Defiant Strike it. He just needs to cycle. Heliod's Pilgrim the draw. And he'll pass back. Not to mention, remember, with 6 mana, you can actually untap your creature that's under the Singing Bell Strike, and that's not irrelevant right now.
No. It looks like Kelley has passed on making that play to cast Rabblemaster and Seeker of the Way this turn.
Yeah, so he doesn't have the 6th land yet, but you're absolutely right. I mean, if you have 2 Rabblmasters, well...
No reason to worry about it.
Yeah, this is another Rabblemaster from Kelley. 2 goblins will be made here. They both have haste. They'll swing. The Rabblemaster will, if it's not sick, will go ahead and swing for 5. That's 8 damage. Joe's at 2. His 2 lands in play both cost him life points. He can't use those. Seeker of the Way joins, and Joe's on end hostilities or bust, but the bad news is he doesn't play that card.
Yep.
And there you have it. Kelley King moves to 8-1 and into our top 8.
Congratulations for Joe. A good run with Blue-White Heroic, but just ran into a horrible matchup to end the day. I think this is got to be the worst matchup of commonly played decks for Blue-White Heroic. And Joe almost able to come back from a mulligan to 5 there. Game 1, wasn't quite able to do it. And then Game 2, that Thoughtseize ruined Joe's entire hand, and he never really did anything else.
And I think for the rest of the top 8 competitors, this has got to be a sigh of relief here. The field is so full of Jeskai tokens and Obzon Reanimator right here. I don't think any of them wanted to play against Joe's deck in the top 8, but Mardu midrange and Kelley King, I think that's a matchup almost any of them would take.
It's certainly an improvement. I mean, you never know how. It's only 2 out of 3, and in short sample sizes, upsets happen all the time. But I agree with you. I think this is a sigh of relief for Jerry and the other people who've already locked up top 8 berths.
Well, we're going to go to another win and in a second here. This